How do you define health at every size? Pretend that I'm like 10 years old. Tell me what that means.
Absolutely. So you know how dogs are all in every shape and size? So you have Chihuahuas, and then you have like big golden retrievers. What's really cool is that humans are the same way.
Hi guys, your girl Candy here, and today we're going to be looking at a video of two dietitians talking, and they both seem really sweet, but really, in my opinion, really naive. That's the only word I can use for it is really naive. They're going to be talking about health at every size. They're going to be talking about clients that they've had that have eaten maybe 300 or 400 calories every few days and continue to gain weight. So that's kind of their take on it. I know that they're fairly young because in a clip that you're not going to hear, they talk about having toddlers and they look young. I've been personal training probably since they were in kindergarten. I have a huge, vast array of experience with all types of people, and I know what people do and I know what they say. And so I think this is going to be really interesting. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Give me a big thumbs up if you like this video, because I've said it before. I love talking to just you. I would just give you a big fat kiss if I could. Mwah. But if you could bring your friends into it, tell YouTube that I'm doing a good job, I would appreciate it. So let's get into it.
How do you define health at every size? Pretend that I'm like 10 years old. Tell me what that means.
Absolutely. So you know how dogs are all in every shape and size? So you have Chihuahuas, and then you have like big golden retrievers. What's really cool is that humans are the same way. So there's a spectrum of body diversity, and some people are bigger and some people are smaller.
Here we go with the Chihuahuas versus everyone again, right? Chihuahuas and golden retrievers in this case. I have a video where a really sweet woman is comparing Chihuahuas to Great Danes. So I'll link that up and you can look at that. Just funny how they always use Chihuahuas. I have a little Chihuahua. He's kind of a little chonker. But anyway, um, here's the thing is that, and I've explained it in the other video that I talked about, that Chihuahuas and Great Danes are different sizes because they have hugely different bone structure. Has nothing to do with the adipose tissue. And the BMI addresses that by having a height scale and a range of weights that you can be. So off the bat, she's kind of doing a false equivalency of a Great Dane to a Chihuahua. We are not, you have to compare Chihuahuas to Chihuahuas and Great Danes to Great Danes because of their bone structure, their height. BMI already does that. So let's see what else she has to say.
And the concept of health at every size is the idea that you do not have to be small to be healthy, that our body size can actually be independent of our health status.
I think Dr. Now would like a word with her.
So you have a very important choice to make. Whether you want to turn your life around or make excuses and end up eating yourself to death.
She's right in that just because you're small doesn't mean you're healthy. And just because you do have some extra fat on you doesn't mean that you're automatically unhealthy. There are about 25% of people that are clinically obese that are actually really never get diabetes or heart disease or any of these other things. But 75% of people that are obese do suffer consequences of obesity. So right off the bat, there's a little bit of truth mixed in with a big untruth as far as, that's just my opinion.
As a registered dietitian, we both have had lots of training in various aspects of nutrition, right? Some of it good, some of it not so good. How did you first get introduced to this concept, this health at every size
Yeah,
movement?
absolutely. It's a great question. And I feel like most of us come around this, not in the traditional sense. So I was never taught anything other than the weight-centric care model in my nutrition classes. I mean, it was never brought up. The idea that you could be healthy and in a bigger body was never once mentioned, and that really informed my practice from where I started from. And I think, like we discover all things these days, I'm sure it was social media.
So she discovered the health at every size, not through her formal education, not from her professors, who were probably doctors, but through social media. So, right off the bat, I have a problem with informing your opinions through social media, especially for someone that's supposed to be a professional. Never in my life have I formed my opinions on being a personal trainer based off social media. So, especially, I'm not saying I don't watch social media, and I don't say that I don't watch fitness professionals because I do, but I always back that up with the science, not just social media.
Something came across my feed and it really intrigued me. I was doubtful at first because of all the training I'd had in this weight centric care model. It's like, how is this possible? I'm supposed to be helping people lose weight to gain health, and now there's a group of people saying that we might not need to do that or that weight might not be the most important part.
So, who are the people that she's listening to? I mean, my worry is that she's getting her information from people like Tess, right? We know who Tess is. Glitter and lasers. This is who she's getting her information from, I assume. So I don't know. It's kind of frightening.
Of a person's health. But it was also really, inspiring to me because I think I was at this part in my career where, the people that I was working with, to a certain extent, they all wanted weight loss. Everybody would try so freaking hard to achieve this body that, like, their doctor told them they should have or social media told them that they should have, and they were, quote, unquote, "doing everything right." Following all my guidance, checking all the boxes, like nutrition looked perfect if we were going to give them a grade, it'd be an A plus plus. Yet their weight wasn't changing or it was changing in a direction that they didn't want it to.
So here's where I feel like the naive part comes in. She's saying that her clients were doing A plus plus with their nutrition, doing everything that they were supposed to do, and not losing weight and even maybe gaining weight. So I don't know that she understands that people lie. They will lie to you. I promise you, clients will lie. They're not doing A plus plus. They're doing C or D work and not telling you. It's just the way that it is. But let's go on. Let's see what else they have to say.
And
Mhm.
so my confusion, I think, as a young dietitian with seeing in real practice that a person's weight and behaviors were not always in correlation with each other, really set the stage.
Yeah, your weight and yes, they are. Your behaviors and your weight are almost always in correlation with each other. There's very few people, unless there's people that have syndromes, there are that they have a harder time. PCOS. There's a syndrome called, I think it's called Prader-Willi syndrome, where they're compulsed to eat more, uh, and they don't lose weight very easily. People with thyroid conditions, but for probably 90 to 95% of the population, your weight is correlated to the actions that you're doing.
Really set the stage, I think, for me to be able to approach the HAES Health at Every Size movement with an open mind.
You mentioned an open mind, and that you've
Mhm,
had to unlearn a lot of these harmful, potentially harmful, and misleading messages,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
What are some of those misunderstandings that you hear a lot about the haze movement?
Absolutely. There's so many, because like I said earlier, like this is the air we breathe and the water we swim in, like this weight centric model. We're essentially born into the world almost believing that certain bodies are good and certain bodies are not good. Like, this is a tangent, but I remember being in preschool. I was 4 and there was a little girl who was bigger than the other little girls, and we would make fun of her for that. So at 4 years old, we had already intuited that that was something that you shouldn't be.
It's horrible that kids will make fun of other kids because they're different, because bigger or skinny or whatever. That's just a horrible part of humanity that I don't know. It seems like it's just in us to want to make everyone the same. And that is horrible. And I feel sorry that she was, and I'm sure she feels bad that she made fun of this little girl who was bigger. But I wonder, why is it that intuitively, even 4-year olds, I seriously doubt that her parents told her, "You need to make fun of this girl, and that's horrible." She knew as a child that somehow being bigger, being having a lot of fat on you wasn't good in her brain. I doubt if she was taught that. Somehow it was in her. So I have always wondered if evolutionarily wise, is that a word, evolutionarily wise, if we're not kind of just automatically see that as a bad thing. And I'm not saying that it always is a bad thing, but I just wonder if humans, if we're hardwired for that, it makes you wonder. I don't know, but it just makes you wonder, doesn't it?
And so, inevitably, what comes along with a lifetime of learning that and really, making that part of, like, your core set of things you know to be true about the world, when you're introduced to this entirely new concept for most people, there's pushback, right? And there's a lot of, misconceptions. I think the first one that I get most often is that it's, like, glorifying obesity. It is an
Okay.
excuse for, a free for all of eating nothing but french fries and Twinkies all day, every day, and that health is no longer on the table. It's almost like, you know, people see the health at every size movement as giving up, but they forget.
I think that health at every size is giving up. That's just my personal opinion. That's her opinion, but I think it is about giving up. I understand how hard it is to try and conform. I grew up, I was young in the 80s and even 90s. I was quite young. And I doubt if these young women even know how incredibly toxic it was back then. I have always been short and stout. I've never been the tall, willowy supermodel, the Kate Mosses of the world that were so popular back then. And I myself felt horrible about being short and stout. And it took me till I was at least 45 to accept that. And now I do accept my body as it is. But there's a difference between me being kind of short, stout, muscular, and me being 200 pounds overweight. There's a difference there. And I feel for anyone who's dealing with that. I truly do.
That health is in the actual name of this idea. It's just really hard for people to imagine that those two things could coexist, being in a larger body and health.
Yeah. I have to say, I don't remember being 4, but I do remember being young and just having that mindset as well. And where did this come from? I mean, we're so young. Where it had to come from messaging outside of what we just directly heard.
How do you become 4 years old and get the messaging? You're not paying attention to what supermodels look like. You're not paying attention to what's on TV other than like when I was a kid, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That didn't talk anything about being skinny. I'm sure, like I said, their parents were not telling them that fat people are horrible. I seriously doubt that. So I don't think it was messaging because as a young child, it's not so much the messaging as much as it is just in your own mind. It really makes you wonder.
Right. Um, it's so sad. So a few weeks ago, I had a guest on the podcast named Esther Carlson. She is a nurse and she's also a health coach at Verta. She and I had this super inspiring conversation on a plane. together, where she was talking about the power of just not talking about body size at all, or even talking about
Mhm,
bodies at all,
mhm, mhm.
especially when you're talking to your children. That was kind of the main, um, a major part of that podcast episode was how do we talk to our children about this? And she said, the best thing to do is just not talk about it. Not talk about it, but not comment on people's bodies. Because why do you need to comment? Instead, commenting on
The weather.
the weather or commenting on what people are doing. For example, she said if you're in the grocery store and you see a large woman purchasing a box of mac and cheese, it's tempting to say, "Oh, well, look at that big lady and she's."
No, it's not tempting to say that. What kind of parent would say to their 3-year-old child, "Hey, look at that big lady"?
Getting an unhealthy food or what have you, and instead, you can, as the parent, you could say, "Oh, well, you know what I see? I see a woman who is buying I see a woman who is buying one of your favorite foods. Isn't that so cool that she and you both love mac and cheese?"
No, how about just not commenting at all? You don't need to be looking in people's grocery stores and talking to your child about, look at this lady getting macaroni and cheese. Don't you think that's the same thing? Why are you if you don't want to point out their body, you shouldn't be pointing out what people are eating either. Talk to your child about what they're eating and what healthy alternatives there might be to mac and cheese. Now, my kids love mac and cheese, and I will make them still mac and cheese for them now and again. But I think it'd be better to talk about healthier alternatives instead of pointing out what this a larger woman is eating. But that's just me.
There are spaces, and these spaces can oftentimes get drowned out by larger voices, whether it's the media, whether it's politics, whether it's healthcare. But the places that I see the most progress happening, and I think where individuals can find the most healing, is honestly on social media.
Really? You're going to tell people to get their information and healing from social media? Okay.
We can talk all day about, the negatives of social media and how it can cause all this harm, but also we have to acknowledge the good things that are going on social media as well.
There's very few good things on social media that you would be getting scientific information for. I would never, ever tell my personal training clients to go to social media to get their information. That's me. I would never, ever do that.
And for the smaller voices, those who don't have as large of a platform, but want to get this idea of health at every size, body neutrality, body positivity out. That's a great way to do it.
The body positivity and health at every size of spaces are some of the most toxic places I've ever seen. I'm not going to say all of them, but so many of them are so incredibly toxic. This is just not a place I would send any of my clients.
And it's a wonderful space where people can form community. Um, because most of the time that community is not found within family or, our culture. It's found by other like-minded, your doctor's office. Yeah. And so a lot of this is it's gaining traction, but slowly, very slowly.
Very slowly. It's not gaining traction very slowly. It's overtaken our entire culture. 70 to 75% of us by the BMI, which is flawed, is says that we're overweight and obese. And I think it's more than that. I think it's worse than that. I talk about that in other videos of why I think the BMI underestimates the obesity problem. So, okay,
But the more people who, really start to question, like, to be open to questioning this idea that weight might not equal health, then the more progress, we're going to be able to make. It's slow. It's slow.
What you're encouraging in your practice and what,
Yeah.
that seed, you plant that seed and it continues to grow. And then you were talking about, again, we can dog on social media all day, but it is a place for movement.
Mhm.
Like it or not, especially, folks from younger generations, this is how they band together. This is how they create change. This is how they make noise. And it's a beautiful thing in many ways. I don't know about you. I have noticed more ads, featuring people who are larger.
Yeah, of course there are ads with people that are larger. Again, let's go back to the toxic 70s, well, before, way back, all the way back since there have been ads. You can go back to the 1800s and look at the ads, and it was always very slim people, very pretty people, of course. And that was at its toxic peak in, let's say, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. You didn't hard maybe other than Roseanne Barr, you did very rarely, and John Candy, who I loved, rip to John Candy, but you rarely saw people that were overweight or not attractive. Every single person you saw was just wafer thin, and it did wear on you. And now it's quite the opposite, isn't it? It's almost to the point where I would say on most commercials and TV shows and everything like that, they maybe 90% of the time do feature someone who is overweight. Just pay attention from now on,
Size woman in America, the average pant size is a size 16.
which is scary because when I was young, a 16 is probably equivalent to what a size 10 is now. I used to wear a size 7, 8, 9, 10, depending when I was in high school, and I weighed something like 115 pounds. So a current size 16 with vanity sizing is pretty big, actually. That's a big size.
So, if we are being told that we need to fall within this like normal BMI range, yet the average American is far from that,
Yeah, scary, isn't it? That we're so far from that. Frightening.
like how normal is the normal BMI range? And
Yeah.
It's not normal. That's the problem. That's the problem that we're having. That's why young people are getting colon cancer and other kind of cancer so young.
is it reasonable to think that the majority of women should be able to transition to a body size well below a size 16?
Not with our current food, not with big food. They want to talk about all the other bigs. They want to talk about toxic diet culture, but no one wants to talk about big food. And until we fix that, it's going to be very difficult to get women or men down to what would be considered a healthy BMI. Not saying the BMI is the end all, just saying.
So the messaging that we're hearing, from doctors, culture, you know, news channels, billboards, gyms, you know, the list goes on, is that ideally we need to fall within this body range to be the most healthy. But when we look at it practically, and we look at what's going on, we realize that there's this major dis- this major discrepancy, you know?
Yeah.
Do these two ladies, did you guys ever watch Saturday Night Live skit with the two NPR ladies? And they talk like this. It's so soft, a little bit of vocal fry. They're sweet. They seem very nice, and I think they have good intentions. I think they're very misguided. That's my opinion, but they kind of remind me of that Saturday Night Live skit with the two NPR ladies.
I'd be interested to hear in maybe an example from one of your
Yeah.
clients,
Yeah.
how they were able to kind of move along this spectrum from having maybe a really poor sense of
Mhm.
self about their body to being able to move toward a more accepting, body image. Can you tell me about an example?
Oh my gosh, which one? There's so many. It's one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to walk this journey alongside people because being in a thin body myself, I don't have the lived experience
So she's always been in a thin body. Keep that in mind. She doesn't have any lived experience with this.
of being a person in our culture in a larger body. And so anytime somebody allows me to know their story, and the harms that have been caused to them by our culture, healthcare, etc., I view it as the greatest honor. We all have a body story,
The greatest honor.
and some people's body stories are a lot more complex and traumatic than others. But I think about one client in particular, and this hits on a lot
The vocal fry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a very hard time with that. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but the vocal fry.
of different topics. I think within like the scope of HAES and weight neutrality and eating disorders, honestly. But she came to be severely malnourished. When I say that, I'm curious to think of how many people immediately think super skinny.
I don't think super skinny because obese people are often very malnourished. How she doesn't know that, I don't know. But many people that are severely overweight, obese, watch my 600-pound life, please. You will see that they are often malnourished because they don't eat enough protein. They don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. They don't get the vitamins and minerals that they need. So, no, I don't think super skinny. Often, super skinny people are far more nourished than obese people.
Like,
Can't
yeah,
help it.
most people. Yes, yes. Most people think, oh, malnourished means that a person is like wasting away. So she was a big girl. She is a big girl. And I would say we never talked specifically about the number on the scale for her because that was really triggering. But she was definitely in the obese category. Yet, when she reported to me what she was eating, when her doctors sent me her lab work, when I had her go to the doctor and, get labs done to make sure that we could move forward in an ethical way, it was clear that she was starving.
So what the this obese woman reported to this dietitian and her lab work showed that she was malnourished and starving. You can't be starving, not literally starving, and in the obese category. Does it make more sense that this client of hers was actually eating not enough protein, vegetables, and fruits for her body to be nourished and was eating loads of junk food to be obese, or that she was literally starving herself and malnourished that way and lying about it? What makes more sense? I'm not sure how this dietitian thinks that she is having clients that are somehow completely different from how we know for a fact how the human body works, our metabolism. Very naive and very odd to me.
So she goes out into the world. She goes to her doctor. She presents as a large woman, and people make assumptions about that. And people then give her advice about that. They say, don't eat these things. Only eat during these times of the day without ever asking her what she was actually eating. So when she came to me and we really started getting into what she was eating and what her life looked like around food, it was clear that she had a significant
Uh, AKA the Tess Holiday disease that we can't say on YouTube, but the Tess Holiday disease. If you know, you know.
so atypical, meaning you don't fall within like the credentials of being under what is the body weight? I can't remember. BMI of like super, super low.
18 or something,
Is it
I think?
18 and a half? Maybe? Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. What's interesting is that it's called AIDS, but most people with are actually in a bigger body.
No, they're not. Most people with the disease that Tess Holliday thinks she has are not typically in a larger body. I don't know where she's getting that from. That isn't true.
Than than we would assume. So it's not.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's actually more typical than typical.
They have an ED, but usually it's the ones that start with a B, the B ED, not the A ED. That's just a fact. She's wrong. I believe that she's wrong.
Huh.
But she reported, "Oh, I'm not eating for 3 days at a time, and then I eat 500 calories, and then I'll see if I can go even longer the next time, and then I'll eat 400 calories."
Okay, if humans could stay obese, not eat for 3 days, and then eat 500 calories, and then even go longer, maybe 4 days, and eat 400 calories, and we could stay obese, then what would have been the problem with Auschwitz? What would have been the problem with just letting people that are in famines starve because they're going to stay obese? We have real world experience through World War II with current famines or wars that go on. I am assuming when the Russians and the Americans liberated the camps in World War II that there wasn't one obese person. You can look at the films, you can look at the pictures. There isn't one obese person, and they were eating equivalent to that. They might go days without eating and then get a few hundred calories in soup and bread. We have real world data that shows that you can't stay obese by eating 900 calories in, say, like a week or a week and a half. It's patently false what her client is telling her. And I just have a hard time believing that a dietitian, someone with a degree that's trained, is naive enough to think that she has somebody or many clients, this is just one of many, that is just, some kind of anomaly instead of being a liar or, delusional.
So, her body was starving, yet she presented as somebody who was, who people assumed to be overeating, lazy.
I'm not saying she was lazy, but she was overeating. You have to take in more calories than you burn to stay obese or stay at a weight. Again, watch my 600-pound life. As soon as they do what Dr. Now says, down to 1,200 calories a day, which is far more than 500 calories every 3 or 4 days, they will end up losing sometimes 60 pounds in a month because that's how much they're overeating. Not one time, not once in the history of that show have I seen it where someone has stuck to 1,200 calories a day and not lost massive amounts of weight.
Gluttonous, stupid. Like, you think about all of these synonyms that we have internalized about people in larger bodies, and what I was seeing was anything but that in this one particular client. She was one of the most, oh my god, her willpower was, like, out of this world.
Her willpower was out of this world from what she was telling you, from what you saw for maybe the hour or two that you spent with her a week. Have you ever watched Secret Eaters? That's another great show.
Denial, self-deception. It is so much more common than you think. Case in point, secret eaters.
Watch Secret Eaters, and you'll understand that your client is either delusional, which I think there is a portion that not tracking, or out and out lying to you. It's just the way that it is. That's the truth.
It was unbelievable, and she was one of my first clients, and I remember it had a really big impact on me because it really honed in on the fact that we cannot tell a what a person is eating based on their weight.
Yeah, yeah, you can. We're pretty good at being able to tell based on your weight how many calories you're taking in a day. That's just, not true. I think that I think that these dietitians mean well. I just think they're really naive. I have caught clients just out and out lying to me. I've also seen them being delusional. And some of the time they don't understand. They just don't understand. I had a friend when I was in high school. I was small in high school and she was much larger than I was. And I remember we would stop on the way to school and get like a dozen donuts. And I would eat one and she would eat one. And we would go to school. And I often thought, well, we eat the same. And she's 160 pounds and I'm 115 pounds. But I remember one particular day, I had to go back to her car. She was driving. I had to go back to her car to get something out of her car. And the rest of the donuts were gone by lunchtime. She had obviously gone back out to her car and eaten the other 10 donuts. And so right then and there, I knew. My mind was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm eating one, she's eating one. I never think about it again. I assumed the donuts, she takes them home. And the truth is she was eating them probably before lunchtime. And that's more realistic. This friend of mine did go on to get bariatric surgery, and I haven't spoken to her for a long time, but on Facebook, she actually looks like she's a healthy weight now. So I'm so glad for her. So that's all I have for today. Please tune in next time. I can't wait to see you back here. If you like me, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and I will see you next time.